Hey, Facebook, special edition of Jersey First TV. We're going to try this again with Senator Kip Bateman. Senator, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Great to be back. Let's hope it works this time.
Well, it was great last week. Unfortunately, we had technology issues. A storm came through. We lost each other. And here we are again. So we really appreciate your time. And a few things have happened since we talked last week. I do want to start with the passage of the bill that gave Governor Murphy so much power. We're going to start with that because that needs to remain in the news. I think it needs to remain top of mind. And if you will, I want to just play you a clip here from you on the floor last week.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't be as animated as Senator Doherty, but it's hard to follow my colleagues because most of them, they've all made some very, I think, pertinent points. I've been in the legislature since 1994. In these 15 months, the past 15 months, I feel like I was on the outside looking in. And I think you share that too, Mr. President. We really had no input in what was going on with the pandemic. And there's a reason why there are three equal branches of government. And there's a reason why democracy works so well when the people are involved. And this bill was not properly vetted, Mr. President. This bill should have been in committee. It should have had an opportunity to hear from the public. These are very important issues, and I know that your office, as well as mine, has received hundreds of phone calls and emails about concerned parents. And, we're all loving parents. I know you are, Mr. President. They're concerned about their children having to wear masks for 7 or 8 hours. This is important stuff. And, the president, not the president, the governor has done some good things, but there's a limit to what he can do and what we should be involved in. And they have not been transparent enough, and this just sends a wrong signal to the public at a time when people are just barely recovering from 15 months of being isolated. So I urge my colleagues to vote against this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
So, Senator, well spoken, obviously. We're all very concerned about this. The bill passed primarily along party lines. What has it been like for you? You sort of mentioned this outside in for the last 14 months.
It's been frustrating because as long as I've been in Trenton, we've always been, part of the solutions. We don't always agree with the Democrats, but at least we've been part of the discussions and part of the committee process. And, I felt like in the past we were always, we had input. The past 15 months, we've had very little input. And I've reached out to the governor several times on different issues. And, I just feel like, it's important that we have checks and balances and that we have three separate but equal branches of government. And I think that, during the pandemic, obviously, he's got to take control. But you know what? He should have brought more of us into the process. So I was disappointed. I voted against the bill. I was disappointed that it passed. And here was a bill that went right to the floor. And very important issues. It should be vetted. The public should have an opportunity to testify. We had hundreds of people outside our chambers, and they were loud. And there's nothing more convincing than a parent who's on a mission, for the betterment of their children. So, it was not handled well, and I just thought that they rammed it through.
Well, the big concerns that people have about this is that Governor Murphy now has sort of unlimited power related to some of the executive orders he kept in place. And some of them are strange ones to me that he kept in place, but interesting. We can talk about that, but also just related to managing the pandemic and the vaccine and the distribution. Really, at what point is anything balancing his decisions? What science is he using? How do we as parents not feel, Senator, as though next fall, when the virus comes back as it will, that he won't shut us down again, mask our children? What assurances do we have? We have none, we feel.
We have none, and we just gave him the power to do even more, and that's the problem. And come September, you're right. The predictions are that it may come back, and then we're not going to have any more input in it. The governor's going to do what he wants to do, and the masks are on, the masks are out. And now all of a sudden he's saying, well, if it's extremely hot, you don't have to wear a mask. We need to have a set policy, and you know what? I'm not convinced, and I think we need more input from the CDC. I'm not convinced that making our children wear masks for 7 or 8 hours is a good thing. I really don't. And, the science has shown us that the children and young adults really haven't gotten it in great numbers. So I'm not sure we need to do that. And I really think that, something that's important, he really should bring in the legislature to be involved.
Yeah, and how about and some science too. I mean,
Yeah.
you are known as a common sense man, and you have been serving the public for a long time. Is it 37 years you've been serving us?
38 years.
38 years.
Yes, I know. I had no gray hair back then.
That's one way to get it. We sadly are losing you after this term. You are retiring, so I want to make sure I thank you for serving the citizens of New Jersey for so long. But you are a common sense, level-headed man. I am frustrated with so many other parents and citizens of the state to understand from where he makes his decisions. Let's talk about this mask issue. You have been pushing back on the governor regarding this. Now, some changes have happened in the past week. As you said, the heat supposedly, I don't know if Governor Murphy called COVID and said you need to stand down when it's above 90.
Right.
But, you know, it's a ridiculous statement, but it's a ridiculous thing to do. Some of these schools have made the move now to use this as an opening to drop the mask. Do you believe the schools have the right to do that, to push back on the governor? Will they be able to do that? And can we focus on these Board of Educations to say no to the governor?
Right. Absolutely. They have I think they have the authority to push back. I really do. And I think the language was vague in the executive order, and a number of school districts are pushing back, which I think is great. And I think that we need more of that. And I think, we need to have some set policy, and, whether we get more science from the CDC, that would be helpful. But I think that the school district should push back because, I don't think it's healthy, and I'm not a doctor. I just, from what I've read and from what I hear, and we had the nurse who stood up a couple weeks ago, and she ended up getting fired. I mean, that's wrong. She sees it. She's in the trenches. She sees it firsthand. And I'm not big on mandates, and I don't want to tell parents what they should be doing with their children. I really don't. So I think that we need to continue to push back. And listen, it's a gubernatorial year, and I'm sure the governor is concerned about his reelection, and he's got to be very careful how he handles this issue, because this is the kind of issue that could cost him a reelection.
Well, it certainly could. And, there are some predictions that he will continue to falsely give us back our freedoms in time for the election. But I think you have to pause and be concerned about a man whose decisions in a crisis were to put his own needs and the needs of the state over the rights and the needs of the people. And regarding mandates, that you brought that up, there is a great concern as well as to whether or not there will be a forced mandate of a vaccine. We've already seen it at the university levels. Let's start with that. Do you believe state money should go to universities who are forcing an emergency medical procedure, which is what this vaccine is, emergency use authorization, on their students when they're not even requiring it for the faculty? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I have real concerns about that. And again, I'm not a firm believer in mandates, and I'm not, certainly when it comes to vaccinations. I think it's really up to the parents individually to make the right decision. But yeah, it's interesting because it seems like we have double standards, and we're requiring all students now to get them, and when everybody else isn't. And as you indicate, it is state money, so it's it's an interesting issue, and I think that we have to be very careful with the taxpayers' money, and I think that there's going to be a lot of pushback on that too. As there is already. Hopefully.
I'm seeing today, by the way, Senator, that Biden is now telling federal agencies not to mandate the COVID vaccine shot, which is interesting because, again, when we talk about any kind of taxpayer dollars going towards something in which a mandate is included, I'm hopeful that that will roll back to the state somehow and that we won't be facing this. But it feels like Jersey is always the last one. It feels like Jersey is the one that just doesn't give a nod to civil liberties. And at this point, it feels as though, Senator, the Republican Party is the party of civil liberties, the party of freedom, the party of the working class. Have you seen that shift?
Yes, I have. And I think that it's a slippery slope. And I think we have to be very careful with mandates. And especially when it comes to vaccinations and masks. And I just think that, people are concerned about big government and government, dictating, in their personal lives. And that's wrong. And, a democracy, shouldn't do that. And so that's why, people are pushing back.
One of the big issues that came up in January of 2020, and I am certain you remember it well, speaking about hearing loud noises outside the Senate chamber. But on January 13th, 2020 was the fight to push back against losing the religious exemption. And again, this is an issue of choice, right? And so the people spoke up, the people pushed back. There is concern now that another lame duck session this year will seek to remove that. Have you heard any rumblings about that?
Well, I have heard that it's going to come back, and I'm sure that if it comes back, it's going to be during lame duck, and that's the worst time in government because everybody has been reelected. They know that they don't have to face the voters for at least 2 more years, and so you got to be very careful of lame duck. And I was against it last time. I'll be against it again, but
thank you.
I know that the Senate president wants to bring it back, and he's a very powerful individual, and he when he sets his mind to something, he usually is successful. So, it's going to be interesting, but the public really has to watch lame duck.
You remember all the phone calls you received, I'm sure, all the emails, and this happened again, of course, last week. What do you say to people of this state? What is the most effective way for them to communicate with their legislators? You've seen it for years. What works and what doesn't work?
No question. Numbers, individuals in your district works the best, and emails or phone calls, they both work. Listen, when we get thousands of emails or thousands of phone calls, I look to see where they're coming from. Obviously, the people in my district take priority, and I think it's important. And legislators, especially in the very competitive districts, they listen, and they listen very carefully because these are the voters. And let me tell you, these issues go right to the heart, and it's not like people are going to forget. Mothers, I met with a number of mothers, over the whole issue of vaccinations and whatnot. And let me tell you, they are committed, and they'll remember. They'll remember in November. So you know what? And I'm not a candidate this year, but I think the candidates have to be very, very concerned and they have to be responsive. No question about it.
Let's talk about budget. I just saw a tweet today from the New Jersey Senate GOP that the Murphy administration is refusing to show up to the critical budget hearings. We're talking about $11.5 billion of taxpayer money and how it gets spent. What's going on? Tell us what's happening behind the scenes with this.
Well, unfortunately, they're not being transparent at all. And all of a sudden now we have all this money. I mean, he took the federal money, said we need it, but now we have so much money, and let's give it back to the taxpayers. Let's pay down some of the debt. Let's pay off make our contributions to the pension and for the health benefits. I mean, let's put it away or for a rainy day. I mean, instead of just spending it all, you got to be transparent. I mean, we want to know where the money's going. I mean, for them not to show up is very arrogant. And the problem is, they control government, both the Assembly and the Senate, and they have comfortable margins, and they really don't need the Republicans, our votes. It's unfortunate because most people like the checks and balances, and we just don't have enough of it in New Jersey.
Well, that's a good segue. We need more of these. So the primary just happened. We've got a big election this year. Every seat is up, including the governor. And we're hoping to see more of a balance. I don't know that we will, but let's start first with the primary. Jack Ciattarelli is a nominee. How do you feel about Jack's chances?
I think he's got a good chance. I really do. Jack is a very articulate individual, and he's a businessman. He knows New Jersey. His family's been from New Jersey for generations, and he's got a good message. And history's on his side. I mean, as you know, in the past, when a Democrat has been elected governor, it's usually one term, especially after a president has been elected on the same party. The year after, New Jerseyans vote for Republicans. So I mean, history's on his side, and I just think that when individuals start to focus Murphy versus Ciattarelli, Jack's got a very, I think, strong message. And I think that, that the elections are primarily, I mean, there's no question the Democrats have an advantage as far as voter, the numbers, but the ones who decide the elections are the independents. And so, and they've been known to vote Republican in the past. So I think before it's over, I think it's going to get very close. Listen, if Jack wins, will it be a landslide? Absolutely not. But if he wins, it'll be close. But it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you win by. And I think the Democrats have been in control for 20 years. And you know what? If you ask most people, are you better off? They're going to say no. And you know what? It's the highest tax state in the country. I mean, it's a great state, but it's so expensive. And people, they're just surviving through the pandemic, trying to make ends meet. I think that it's ripe for a change. And I tell you, I support Jack. I think that it's our best opportunity. And let's hope that the rest of the public feels the same.
Amen. And let's hope everyone shows up and casts their vote and doesn't sit it out. I think some people are so frustrated. They need to show up. Of course, as you said, no one will be listening this summer, but come September, everyone will get re-engaged. The moderates are very important. The independents, that is, are very important to Jack. What do you think they care about most? What are their top issues?
I think obviously affordability is one of them. Taxes. Affordability in New Jersey. I mean, most people love New Jersey, but it's too expensive. And obviously issues impacting their families. And I think this whole issue with the masks, the vaccinations, I think people are very concerned that the government is becoming too heavy-handed. I think that people care about their personal freedoms, but obviously at the end of the day, the first one is, finances and, whether they can afford to stay here. And, a lot of families have two incomes just to be able to afford to pay the taxes and pay the high cost of living in New Jersey. So I think taxes, affordability, I think they want to have some more confidence in government. I think that people are very disillusioned by government, both at the state level and obviously at the federal level. So I think people want their representatives to, be responsive. And I think that Jack offers a lot of solutions to some of the problems.
Well, let's talk about your district. I have someone that just posted here, Lori Mary. Why aren't you running again with 3 crying emojis?
Oh, that's very kind. It was a difficult decision. And, earlier this year, and I'm not afraid to talk about, I had a heart issue. I had open heart surgery. And my district's become very competitive. Right now I have over 15,000 more Democrats and Republicans.
Wow.
I've won in the past. Last time I won by 800 votes. And there's no question they were targeting me. I was told by my Senate colleagues, Democrats, that the governor wanted a Democrat in my seat, and they were going to put a lot of money against me. And last time, I raised over, myself over $250,000, and that's a lot. And we spent over $1 million. So it's become very difficult. The numbers right now are difficult for a Republican, and I kind of wanted to go out on my own terms. It's been a good run, and so I'm going to miss the people. I'm going to miss being involved. But and we're fortunate we have our first grandson, and so I got 4 children, 1 grandson, and so I can spend some more time with them because to do it right, you're out a lot nights, weekends, and it's a big commitment. So but I'll miss it. I'll miss it. That's for sure.
I'm sure you will miss it, and your district will miss you. Talk about Michael Pappas. He won the primary. Are you supporting him?
I am supporting Mike. Mike was a former congressman. He and I served on the Freeholder Board together. So I've known Mike probably for 30, 35 years. And, I know that he's interested in good representation. And so, I am supporting Mike.
Will you be able to campaign for him a few times?
Yeah, and he's asked me if I would speak at an event. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So, we'll do what we can. And, we just, we've got to get the independents out and, convince some of those Democrats that all Republicans aren't bad.
Yes, please do that. This election is the one, Senator, I think, to turn the corner in New Jersey. We may not get the numbers of the red seats so much as we are going to start to get the moderates to pay attention to our ideas. The governor's race is key. We have to start to change this. And I think it's a messaging issue. I really do. I believe, as I said to you before, that Republicans are the party of civil liberties now and freedom and the working class. And boy, those are important issues in New Jersey. They're key issues.
No question about it. Very important.
So we need them to know that's who we are. We would love to still have you with us, but we know you will do all you can through January to fight for us. We appreciate that so much, Senator. And you're continuing to speak out about the masks. I want to end on that issue. This issue isn't over. Whether or not the governor says it's too hot, or he takes them off at camp, or he says, whatever number of things, the reality is it can come back very quickly, especially given his new powers. We have to keep the pressure on. How do we do that?
Well, just, continue to reach out for your legislators and actually sign our petition. Right now, we have over 12,000 individuals who have signed our petition against the mask. Just keep reaching out to your legislators, your assembly folks, your senators, and, we just got to keep the pressure on because we have to know that this is a very important issue and that we're not going to go away and we're going to continue to fight. So keep
Absolutely.
up I'm always impressed. I was very impressed with the number of people who during a work day came to Trenton and stood outside for hours. Let me tell you, they're committed. And it's an important issue.
It's our children. I don't think there's anything more important than that. So when you poke mama bears and fathers, they push back. So we will continue to do that with your help. Senator, thank you. And thank you for all of your service. We will see you out on the trail once in a while until
Absolutely.
November, but keep fighting for us until the end. We appreciate you so much, Senator.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. And to my audience, we'll be back tonight at 7:30 with Rosemary Becky and with Mike Rooney to talk about the primary results. So we'll see you guys tonight. Thank you again, Senator.
Thank you. Just wait.